on
Go
the
ahead.
subject of discourse, because there's a lot of times where you'll almost go out of your way to try to give people an olive branch. You know,
Hmm.
you'll start with that, like, well, this is why you're wrong. I'm just letting you know. I was listening
Hmm.
to what's Matthew McConaughey on NPR today. He was doing a Spaces, this new Spaces thing. They brought it back,
Oh yeah.
and he was saying about how discourse has been changed, and people are not having conversations. They're just trying to convince the other side why they're wrong. And
Hmm.
that's an issue, because we have to learn how to have conversations where we can validate the other side. Like, look, I understand your side of things. I want to help you understand my side of things. People are now just trying to tell others why they're wrong, and that's it. That's the only thing. You're just wrong. You're in a, and that's what those people are trying to do. They just get on your page. They don't want to hear back from you. They don't
No.
care about that. They just want to tell you're wrong. And as soon as you counter them, you're like, oh, you think I'm wrong? Cracks
Hmm.
knuckles, and you go to work. And
Yeah.
that's a you take a step back, and that's happening on so many different levels in everything, in politics and um, school boards, and I mean everything. I mean, everyone. There's no more civil discourse anymore. It's such a shame.
Hmm. That is 110% it, man. It's become part of it, I think, is the proliferation of social media. We've gotten to the point where, again, people are so, and I want to phrase this tactfully, but they're so socially inept
Yep.
that the art of persuasion has died. It's taken a nosedive. It's dead.
Yep.
Throw in the towel, barrier. People don't understand how to persuade people. There are
Right.
select few people that still do. A lot of those people become politicians, and they do nothing except for dupe people out of tax money. Thanks for that bridge to nowhere, people, and thanks for all this infrastructure. But again, that's the problem.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Everything is infrastructure now. This oxygen, infrastructure. Man, smell that
Don't even get me
infrastructure.
started on that freaking infrastructure BS, dude. It's
Yeah,
so
but no,
stupid.
dude, people are ruined though, and that's part of the issue is that nobody has any. I think it's the EQ, emotional quotient. You know how people always say, I've got big brain, 140 IQ. A lot of people don't have very good EQ. They don't understand empathy, how to empathize, how to,
Yep.
basically be sociable and receive a message,
Yes.
and then take that message and create some kind of permutation that will be receivable by the other person and give it to them. People don't
Exactly.
understand how to do that anymore. Nowadays, I've gotten this doctrine from this person, this expert. I'm gonna bang yourself over the head. I'm gonna bang you over the head with that like a cudgel,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually they just do it until somebody says, "Okay, you know what? I'm done with this. You're not listening. Bye bye." Okay, well, you should have did that about 5 or 6 tweets ago, but never mind.
Right.
No, here we are, and so that's where we're at. So discourse is dead, and
Yeah, it is.
it's unfortunate, but we can either mourn it or we can adapt. So by dunking on people, I'm basically adapting because if you're going to say something stupid, you ought to get told how stupid what you said
Yeah,
sounds.
yeah. I mean,
Make
how
bullying great again.
well, yeah, essentially that could be an answer. And that's kind of what I wanted to go into. Like, how do we inject emotional intelligence back into society? Like, how do we bring that to the forefront? Because I feel like if more people had empathy, things would make more sense, or not make more sense, but those people that don't care about anyone else, like, oh, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're a Nazi. They go to that
Mhm.
extreme. If they had just a little bit of empathy, they would understand,
Mhm.
or at least see a little bit, and maybe finally realize that this utopian world that they all imagine, that everyone will all get along, everyone will agree on every
Not
single
gonna
thing.
happen.
It's never going to happen. It's just not. uh, it's an impossibility. No one will ever agree with everyone else. That's just not how humans are, right? We're
Hmm.
so drastically different. We were talking about it a little bit before the show started. It's just like there's 7 billion, almost 8 billion people on this planet. It's
Right,
crazy.
right, and everybody has just some different form of pathology,
Mm-hmm.
There's some way that they receive a message. So you can say, "Hey, how's it going?" Okay, you're going to get a number of good answers. A lot of them are going to be, "Oh, doing fine," but then you're going to have people that are going to say, "Oh, well, my day's bad. I stubbed my toe on the way out the door. I stepped in a puddle of water. Now I got wet socks." I'm like, one word can be received a number of different ways, and so
True.
the issue with that is, again, we've got to be able to custom tailor our approach. Like, there's no ideal way for us to create a society that people are all going to get along in, and that we're all just going to suddenly be feeling just,
Yep.
happy in this one utopia. But it
It's
starts with
laughable.
dads raising their kids. That's the first thing, because I'm noticing in
Yes.
our increasingly matrilineal society,
Mm.
and I don't want to get into the whole absent father thing, because again, that's been beaten to high hell, especially with the black community.
Okay.
There are actually a lot more fathers present in the black community than we think. But the issue is, you have a lot of present absentee fathers,
Yeah.
people that are in the house, but they're too busy on their phones and
Or
on
playing
other
games or
things.
anything. Yeah. And
And they're
I don't
not
even
raising
think it's
kids.
in that community alone. I think that phrase, absent fathers, like it's not even a race thing, because I think that's just prevalent across society in general. This whole, I
Mhm.
mean, how many, I was on Tinder back in the, I mean, I'm married now, but I've been on there, and years ago, and I just was like, whatever, seeing what it was like, and there were so many women with kids. It's
Yeah.
not. I have cousins that are, oh, I'm dating this girl who's got a couple kids, like whatever. It's like a normal thing now to just have
Yeah.
kids. So it's normal to have kids without a husband, and it's also normal to just get abortions. Like, I mean, that's a whole nother subject. I'm
I
not trying to
know.
like really bring that up, but you know,
Don't ban us, bro. But
right?
no, that's
It's normalized, both sides of those things.
Mhm. And that's a problem. That's the where we're at. And it's weird, because again, there's not even a comfortable way to broach that conversation. Like, you can't go up to a kid and say, "Hey, who made you?" Or you cannot ask the woman, "Hey, who'd you allow to redecorate your internal and walls?"
Right,
Sorry,
right,
I'm
right.
trying to very hard to not be vulgar with this, but it's like, who did you basically run off on you on the first night? That's
Yeah,
what we
yeah.
really need to figure out. But then, that gets into a whole nother layer. Rampant sexuality. Think about it. You just said you were on Tinder. What do we use Tinder for,
I
guys?
I hated it too. I
Mhm.
actually I went on, I think, 2 dates total, and they were terrible. I instantly regretted it. I met my
Mhm.
wife in real life. We met in a
Yes.
beautiful in interaction. The sparks flew. I was blinded, right? She's now
Mhm.
my wife. Like, every other girl just disappeared, because it
Yeah.
was a moment that I will never forget for the rest of my life. That day is burnt into my memory, and like, you can't
Same
get
here.
that with Tinder. It's like,
It's too
I
formulaic.
I don't know. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
I'm very much against that whole thing, because you lose, you don't get the vibes from people, right? There's this
No.
energy that human beings have when you're around someone else. You'll never ever get that from a picture,
Even worse,
ever,
it's like a
ever.
routine. It's like a routine. Like, there's this unspoken routine that you have to go on Tinder, where first off, when you swipe on somebody and you match, first y'all are going to share a couple of barbs. They're going to make a couple of remarks about your person. First off, you share a couple of barbs. Then next thing you know, you got to make her laugh. Or
Yeah.
if you make her laugh on the first one, okay, well, now we got to have a follow up to the conversation. We got to keep it interesting. And after
Right.
that, you maybe share a few vague platitudes about your life. You try to come off as mysterious but successful as possible, yada yada. And
Right.
then
Right.
after that, you assume that she's not over here texting Mr. Chad Thunder something that I can't
Right.
say, and that you've got a chance to shoot your shot for the number. And it's like,
Right.
that's such a soulless, formulaic process. that
Yeah.
you never get to know anybody, but they do get to know this idealized version of you where that luster eventually wears off. And what do you think
Right.
happens when you lose that luster?
Yeah. They move
You
on.
know,
They go to the next one. It's like,
hmm and
I
you
don't,
pray that they use protection before they moved on, because
oh my gosh.
otherwise, here you go.
Well, that whole
And
thing too. I mean, people are not using protection, and they don't care anymore because there is no
mhm.
accountability. I feel like we're
Yeah.
shooting at like multiple different targets right now, but I mean, all this kind of stuff needs to be talked about. I hear you got kids in the background. It's like, you know, that's really cute. I mean, I'm looking forward to being a dad. No joke. Like
Oh.
I
Mhm.
can't wait. I'm actually in my dad's house, and I have spent a lot of time over the past couple weeks hanging
That's
out with my
amazing.
dad. And I don't live around here anymore, so I cherish these moments. And I learned a lot from him. And we talk about fathers being in the household. I don't
Mhm.
know what I would do if I didn't have uh, if my dad didn't change his whole life for me, and he really did. And
Yeah.
that's a good father.
Taking
When
that
you've
step.
that's it. Like he really,
Mhm.
I'm looking back at what he did. I'm like, wow, like that I learned a lot from him, and I can't wait to change my life for my kids. Right.
That's amazing.
And
That, and I mean,
how do we instill that? How do we bring that back to that responsibility, that um how good that feels? I don't know what it feels like yet. You
I
do.
think we're taking the
You're dead.
steps.
Yeah.
I think I think we're finally, sort of taking the steps. A lot of, you see all the information about what people are doing when they're going to the school boards now. So much so that the
Those
most
domestic
popular
terrorists.
president. I know. Oh
Can
my
you believe
God.
that?
Excuse me. I don't like you teaching my son. Hey, FBI, open up. It's like, what are we doing? But that's the step that needs to be taken, is because people are so disconnected from what their kids are doing. You
Right.
know, they just give their kids smartphones and give them tablets, and
Yep.
then just let them go off and roam the uncensored internet and probably end up on TikTok. And then
Mm-hmm.
next thing you know, they're sitting up here absorbing all of these negative social mores and these bad ideas.
That
And then a few
that
years down
China
the road,
controls and
China,
is
China.
manipulating the algorithms. Please continue though.
But yeah, it's like, oh, and don't even get me started on algorithm manipulation. We've got a whole generation of kids that have grown up nurtured by an algorithm. Think about
True.
that.
That's true. It's
And that,
scary
like,
actually when you put it that way.
mhm. And so what we're looking at right now is that we're in a situation where, your kids, a few years down the line, they've consumed so much of this trash media, followed so many of these trends, and again, their neuropsychology, it's still developing so much. And then
True.
by the time they're 16, 17, and you're finally trying to have a conversation with them as an adult almost, or they're
The
this person that's just reprehensible to you. You can't stand them. You're like, okay, just go off to college. I'm done. I don't want to be around them, and that's what we end up getting. And then these
and that's what
kids,
they want also.
hmm and
And
they grow up with resentment though against their parents. That's another thing that we don't talk about. And guess
yeah.
what? If they haven't been properly parented, I've learned this. My mom's always told me this, and she still tells me this while I'm raising my kids. Kids crave structure. Subconsciously they really do. They want to, they want to be disciplined in a way that just lets them know that you care. And when you
Yeah.
don't do it, and they grow up, who do you think they're going to get to do it?
Govern
This,
me harder, daddy.
oh my God, tax me harder, Grandpa.